Hey everybody, welcome back to The Pursuit. I'm Jeff, this is John, and we've got a wonderful guest that's going to be joining us today to talk about a unique topic that I think is going to be very pertinent to especially the fathers in our viewing and listening audience today. But before we get to that, today's episode is being brought to you by Premier Home Loans. And whether you're buying, selling, or refinancing, or building your dream home, you have a lot riding on your loan officer. Matter of fact, you just used Premier Home Loans.
I just used them. Yeah, we just closed on a house. We're in it. We love it, and we couldn't have done it without the help of Dana over there at Premier Home Loans.
You bet. A quality professional is necessary for navigating frequently changing market conditions and complex mortgage programs. But this is all made easy when working with this incredible team over at Premier Home Loans.
Can I say this? There's still 100,000 pages that you have to sign, okay? So it's not, when you say
they
easy.
Don't cut that out?
No, that's not cut out. But it doesn't matter who you go with on that. You still got to,
that's true.
You're going to get writers cramping on that.
Over there.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And they're a family-driven operation. Great group over there. And you can be confident that Premier's ultimate goal is to ensure that you make the right choice for you and your family. Go check them out at premierhomeloansco.com. Co is
as
for
Colorado, which you just informed me about earlier.
I'm going to go with Colorado.
I went with company. I don't know why.
premierhomeloansco.com. Check it out. Well, let's introduce you to our guest. She's a dear friend of ours. Her name is Krista DeYoung. Krista is the executive director of Girl Above, and it's a wonderful ministry targeted to teenage and younger ladies. So, Krista, welcome to The Pursuit.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Hey, tell our viewing audience a little bit more about your ministry and what you're doing and who you're targeting and what you're really trying to accomplish.
Yep. So it's evolved over the last 5 years. We launched in 2015, and it came out of a season of my life that I spent teaching 8th grade science. So it only took 1 year as an 8th grade teacher to realize the kids are not okay. And so we just started off as an online blog for young women, young girls to share things that they're going through. This is a season of life when they feel really alone and like things are hopeless and they'll never get better. They feel really misunderstood. We all remember our time of adolescence, but our goal is to provide just really identity-driven Christian mentorship, but also to provide them a platform for strong psychological, clinical mental health support. So we work with adolescents and parents and schools, churches. We hope to touch every single person who would be in the sphere of influence of an adolescent girl. So in a nutshell, that's what we're up to.
You know, Krista, you and I were talking as we were preparing for this episode, and we were talking that I think probably one of the reasons why your ministry exists is because there's a gap right now. And that gap specifically that we're going to address today is this gap that exists between these adolescent, teenage young ladies and their dads. And I'll be honest with you, I've been in the ministry working with these dads for a long time. And one of the biggest challenges that I'm seeing, at least in these men's life, is how do I relate to teenagers in general? Let's just start there, let alone female teenagers. And the struggle is, how am I going to relate to them? How do I talk to them? Is that really mom's job? Is it my job? Am I now irrelevant in this whole discussion? And so guys really struggle with this role that they have with their kids at this age. Is that a safe assessment that that's part of the reason why your ministry exists?
Yes, absolutely. And I'll say it didn't start off that way. When we started, I started with the teenage girls in mind and their moms. So I grew up as a dancer, as a dance coach. So we just have dance moms everywhere. And I saw the disconnect between moms and their adolescents. It wasn't until I got into the nitty gritty of like why these mental health problems exist and what the actual solutions are that I realized we need dads. We need fathers in this fight so bad. And I'm really excited to be talking to you guys about this today because this is a topic that I've wanted to talk about for months. So, well, probably years, but I have to tell you a story that I think encapsulates this so well. So probably 3 years ago, and Jeff, this goes exactly to what you're saying. I was out on the patio at Starbucks, and there was this guy on the phone with his buddy sitting next to me talking about his 15-year-old daughter. And he was just venting, and he's like, she's crazy, dude. Like, she is nuts. I don't know what to do. Like, it's just so much drama. So I'm out. her mom can figure this out. And at the time, I'm like, yeah, you're right. She probably is a little crazy and makes sense. All right, hopefully mom's got it. But now I look back on that and I keep going back to like, he's missing such an opportunity. And if I knew now what I knew then, that would have been a great opportunity to just talk to him about like, what does it look like to get involved? So yeah, the fact that guys feel completely confused about where to start is very legitimate, for sure.
So where do they start? Let's just kind of pick up with the rest of that topic, because I raised two daughters, and certainly I was in the camp of there's certain things that I'm like, you know what, talk to your mom. Okay, maybe there's things that it should be appropriately come from the mom as opposed to the dad, but just out of ignorance because we don't know, right? But where does a dad that wants to proactively engage with their daughter, because I don't think there's a dad out there that says, yeah, I want my daughter to grow up and be sexually promiscuous and marry the wrong guy and have a dead-end job and yada yada, right? So where does a father become proactive? How does that start?
Yes, a few things. One, it's going to start way earlier than he even thinks. We think we start talking about dating and relationships and sex when kids get into like 8th grade and beyond, and you're going to want to start way earlier than that. And we probably need to touch on just the culture of adolescence and sexuality and dating right now. But would you guys say, as a precursor to the answer to this question, would you guys say that a lot of men are not afraid of their teenage daughters, but feel really like uncomfortable about what to do and they're nervous about how to engage?
I think afraid is the right word. Actually, you shouldn't have corrected yourself. I think afraid is absolutely right. What do you think?
I agree.
They're a mystery, man.
Yes. So
coach us up, Krista.
Yeah,
Boy, it's kind of too late for us. Our girls
Yeah.
Well, and you raised great daughters. But I would say that is the place to start, is addressing your fear, asking yourself, why am I afraid? What about me feels inadequate? And I'm not a guy. I don't know. So I might make some assumptions and you guys can help me out. But I think teenage girls are so emotionally driven and really complex in how they think about themselves and their identity. And they're not easily coached by like these little things like, hey, just figure it out. Pick yourself up by the bootstraps. Just get out there, kid. Like, that doesn't work for girls, and it really requires men to get in touch with their emotional side and the side of them that is willing to sit with their daughter, get in the nitty-gritty with them, and figure out, okay, where has my daughter's identity gone a little bit goofy, and how can I show her her worth? And it's a lot about lovability, and does she feel like she matters to you in a way that is way beyond, you paying the bills or buying her a car or stuff like that. But like, her personhood is a great place for guys to start. And when you think about it, you as the dad are her first encounter with a male relationship, how she should be treated, how she should be honored and respected. And that's something that I think is a huge deal and should definitely be engaged in, not passively, but very actively, because those are conversations that mom can have, but mom doesn't have the mind of a guy. Like, only dad can help coach that girl about what guys think, what their intentions are, how, like, red flags. That is a conversation that dad can have in a way more effective way than mom. And I think men are afraid, so they don't do that. And then they're like, okay, don't date till you're 30. And when the guy shows up at the door, I'm going to like cock my shotgun. And it doesn't really meet the need, if that makes sense. So the emotional connection is 100% the first place to start.
Can I tell you, Krista, I think one of the reasons why guys are scared is, this is a hypothesis, only because it applies to my life, is that great parents, man. I have incredible parents. They're still alive. I love them to death. I had a great dad, great mom, great upbringing, the whole deal. But I'm 53 years old. I just revealed that to the world. And I'm still waiting on the sex talk, if I could say that. I never formally had a sex talk with my father or my mother, for that matter. And as you know, and I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but when we don't have those kind of conversations with our parents, we're getting it somewhere, right? We're going to get that information. Jeez.
I'll let it.
So if we're not getting that information from our parents, we're getting that information from somewhere. And typically it's going to be the culture, right? It's going to be our friends. It's going to be through TV. It's going to be through movies. It's going to be through magazines. It's going to be through pornography, whatever it is. And so therefore, one of the reasons why I think men struggle with that conversation is because it was never modeled for them.
Yep. I would agree 100%. And not to scare dads, but just to be really honest, the average age of entry into pornography right now is about age 8, which makes sense because that's generally the age that kids get their, maybe their first iPhone. If they have an iPad, I would say it's earlier than that. So a conversation that might have been easily navigated in high school, or that could have been avoided altogether because hopefully your kid just doesn't encounter porn, is not an option anymore. And then in addition to that, you have teenage girls right now who are feeling like they have to measure up with what guys are seeing on their screens through pornography. Girls are getting addicted to pornography at much higher rates than ever before. I have yet to meet a high school girl who has not been bombarded for nude photos by friends, guys that she knows, someone she's dating. So that's kind of the landscape of what we have right now. And it is a terrifying conversation to have, even if you feel like, yeah, I've got this, I'm equipped, because the terrain is so scary. So if you think about, okay, my daughter is going to encounter these things. She's going to encounter some sort of imagery online, and she's going to encounter guys that are going to try to cross her boundaries. How am I going to do that? That is the place that it gets really sticky. But the good news is your kids actually want to hear from you. And like you said, Jeff, if they don't hear from you about any of it, they just learn it from TV, they learn it from Netflix, from the kids in their school. And I promise you, you do not want a 15-year-old boy educating your 15-year-old daughter about dating and boundaries and what safe love looks like. That's petrifying. So if you're scared of the talk, are you more scared of that, or are you more scared of the 15-year-old boy teaching your daughter? And it's okay to go in with vulnerability and say, I don't know how to have this conversation with you. I feel really uncomfortable, but I want you to know that you can come to me with anything, no matter what. And even if you make a mistake, I'm going to still love you. Like, there's nothing you can do that will make me not love you. And that right there is the open door to have whatever conversation you want to have with your daughter.
I gotta tell you guys a quick story that happened when my daughter first started dating. My daughter's name's Lindsay, and I can't remember, honestly, I can't remember the age that we kind of said, okay, at this age is when you can actually go on your first date. But I think we went with middle school. I think we went with 7th grade is when we kind of said, okay, you can go on a parent observed date and something that's safe. And so anyway, she was all excited. She met this boy at youth group at church, which seems safe enough, right? I mean, a kid at youth group, how bad can it be? So anyway, this is the first guy, the first young man. And so I told her, and she knew this from the very beginning, okay, if somebody asks you out to go on a date, you tell them you have to talk to my father first. And so she said that to him. She followed the rules. And so sure enough, I was going to pick her up at youth group this particular night, and it was all set up. The boy was going to come and talk to me and have this conversation with me. So I pull up in my car, Krista, and there they are. They're standing out front of the church waiting for me to pull up. And I roll down the passenger window, and I motion to him to come over to the car. I don't get out. I motion him to come to me. I got to have this power play, right? You got to set up the power play. And so he gets into my car, and I don't remember the young man's name now, but I said, let's say his name was Tom. I said, Tom, I got one question for you. You want to date my daughter, right? Yes, sir. I said, I have one question to you. I said, what's the most valuable thing in your life? And he says, well, I'm saving up money to buy a car. I said, yeah, car's cool, man. I remember my first car, the whole thing. I said, let me ask you something. Let's say you buy that car, and I ask you if I can borrow the car, and you say yes, and I take your car out, and I just trash it. I mean, I run it through the mud, I run it over rocks, I throw McDonald's bags all over it, and then I bring it back to you and give you the keys, and I said, man, thank you for letting me borrow your car. What are the odds that you're going to let me borrow that car again? And he goes, probably not very good, sir. And I said, that's right. And I said, let me tell you something. My daughter is a lot more valuable to me than any car will ever be to you. So I expect you to give her back to me in the same condition that I give her to you. And they had one date. So that's one trick, is scare all the guys away, and then your daughter will just become a nun.
Exactly. Well, okay, so to add on to that, I think that has been the one safe zone for men. Dads are like, okay, if I can scare away every guy, then I won't have to deal with this. And my daughter will maybe never get married, or by the time she brings a guy home, she's an adult and it's less awkward. I don't know. But I would challenge the men listening to add on to that. So you don't have to stop threatening the guys and having the conversation. I think it's good for guys to know that dads are aware and that there's some sense of accountability. What I've seen working with girls is you can like build into them, you like do all this identity work and heal, all the stuff that they've been working on. It takes one guy to come along, one guy, and all of a sudden everything goes out the window. And it's like they don't even know who they are anymore. They don't know what they care about anymore. If anybody listening, you've seen your daughter bring home a guy that you're like, why though? Why this guy? Why are you dating him? Chances are it's because she doesn't probably really know why she's dating him, but he fills something in her. And even if their values conflict, she might not be able to see it. So one thing that guys can also do, dads can do, in addition to creating some strong accountability for the boyfriend, is to help your daughter build such strong values in herself that when a guy comes along and doesn't align with that, one, she can actually see it. Two, she feels permission to walk away. It's not like this guy who comes along, if he's not right for her, it's so sad because girls they literally wonder like, well, will anyone else ever love me again? Or am I just going to be alone? That's kind of their attitude, is like, well, I'll just take the guy who likes me. And I think dads can really help daughters understand that they have such value, and it's okay to be picky with a guy. It's okay to like send him walking, and that she will be, loved and cherished by the right guy who comes along. So helping your daughter have a filter for how to even discern a good man is so important.
So what I hear you saying, Krista, is that, the typical dad out there is used to kind of his teenage daughter's eye rolling. Oh, Dad, the just being discounted, sort of almost devalued in a sense. But really they're not, is what I'm hearing, that their words are important, do carry weight. Would you speak to the dads out there to encourage them around that, to keep after and not to give up on their daughters?
Yep. And this is something that we talk about with moms all the time, is like, your daughter will push and push and push against you, and she might seem like she just hates you, but that is a defense mechanism, and she still needs you. And it's the same way with dads. So, dads make dad jokes, and so they just elicit eye rolls sometimes, and that's okay. Don't let it scare you away. But if you can have some kind of like intimate moments with your daughter where you're going to pull her aside and just get on her level emotionally and just sit with her like, hey, can we talk about this? Tell me what you like about this guy. Tell me, what does he bring out in you? Has he done anything that makes you feel uncomfortable? You can tell me. You can talk to me about this. Those are the things that will gain so much respect with your daughter, even if, 5 minutes later she eye rolls at you and walks out of the room. You never know. You might get 50 eye rolls in a row. And then it's just that one time when something happens where she comes to you and says, Dad, can we talk? And that's what you want. You want her to know that you are emotionally available and that she can trust talking to you without you saying, oh my God, I'm going to kill him. And then, like, because she might just need a minute where you're going to listen before you go kill the guy. So, yeah, being emotionally available is a huge deal.
I want to call something out and make sure that we call it for what it is. I think that in addition to everything we've talked about how dads are sort of, it's my job to drive as many boyfriends away and to think the worst of them and all of that, is because when they look at them, they're looking in the mirror, Krista. And that sometimes the things that we project on other people are really the things that we're angry about with our own selves. So talk about really what we can do as men, in addition to opening up the communication with our daughter, what we can do as men to set the standard for our daughters in terms of what they should be looking for in terms of a godly man.
Yep. That's all going to start with addressing your shame. That's the first step always in any sort of recovery process, is allowing God into those areas of your heart where you look back with such guilt and shame. And if you were someone, let's say, who has a history of pornography addiction, you might think, well, I'm so unqualified to talk to my daughter about porn, or that's really hypocritical. Should I even do that? But God has worked in your story and can use the lessons from your past and your wounds in your life to really help educate her. So it's understanding that God will not waste any part of your story and what you've been through. I think that's a huge thing, is not letting shame dictate that. But also, so much more is caught than is taught. So if you think about what your daughter's going to learn through you just threatening her boyfriend versus what she's going to learn through how you treat your wife, how you treat her, how you honor your family, how you love the Lord, that is going to be a mirror for her. Because she's either going to say, I want to find a guy who's like my dad, or I don't want to be with someone who's like my dad. Those are kind of the two options. Maybe there's some in between, but you just live, like, seeking first the kingdom of God, honestly, is something that she can walk away saying, okay, that's pretty cool. And when some guy comes along who's kind of a buffoon, hopefully she'll be able to see it because she's used to you. And she's used to watching you, and she'll know if it doesn't feel quite right. So that would be the initial steps.
That's beautiful, Krista. Let's wrap with this, because we're running out of time here. But I know if the guys that are listening today are anything like me, they like three easy steps of things that they can implement tomorrow. They can begin tomorrow with their teenage daughter that maybe they've never done before. What are 2 or 3 very practical things that guys can begin to do to begin to slowly walk into this new role as a father to their teenage daughters?
Yep. So the number one thing would be try to get her alone and just have a conversation. Ask her, hey, how are you really doing? And then give her permission to speak freely, and do not panic. Do not freak out. So whatever she tells you, you put on your poker face and you stay present and you walk her through that. Help her, coach her to see, what the flaws are in her thinking, all of that, but you don't always have to find a solution. So the first thing would be have a conversation, listen, don't freak out. Second is be willing to stay emotionally present without feeling like you have to provide a solution. I think that's so hard for men because it's like, well, let's just solve this. Let's just figure it out and move forward. And sometimes girls do the whole path, and it's frustrating and maddening. Just stick around. 3 is try to have a conversation that uses words that you might not normally use. I don't know all of the men in our audience, but if you can speak to who your daughter truly is, not what she's accomplished, not what her grades are, not her outer appearance, but character things, and start affirming your daughter as a person and her God-given identity, those 3 things are 3 things that set an amazing foundation for you. from there.
That's a beautiful set of examples for us to follow. Immediately what I think of, and we'll close with this, I think of the moment when Jesus was baptized. And if you remember that moment when John was baptizing Jesus, and as Jesus was coming out of the water, it says that Jesus and the people around heard the audible voice of the Father. And he said these words, he said, "This is my son." Let's just stop there. The first thing he said, "This is my son." Why was he saying that? I think he was saying it for a couple of reasons. He was saying it for the people around to hear. But more importantly than that, Krista, I'm going to submit that I think the reason why God said that is he wanted Jesus to hear it. He wanted to hear Jesus hearing the words from the Father saying, "You are mine." And then he says, "In whom I'm well pleased, and in whom I love." Basically, I'm going to say it a different way, of whom I'm proud of. Before anything that he's done in his life, before he carried on the most famous 3 years of Jesus' life, this is pre his ministry. This is right before he launched. God said, "This is my son, in whom I love, in whom I am well pleased." I think he said it for Jesus to hear, because Jesus, right after this, his identity was tested. He went into the desert right after this. It says the Spirit of the Lord led Jesus into the desert to be tempted. The Spirit of the Lord. It wasn't Satan that took him into the wilderness. It was the Spirit of God that leads him into the wilderness. Why? Because his identity of sonship, his identity needed to be tested. Because God knew, if my son can pass the test of sonship, he will now be empowered to be able to carry out the purposes for which I placed for his life, which is the ultimate sacrifice for all of mankind. Pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
I think, Krista, one other note, just I want to add to something you said there, with our teenagers, is that you said something that was fantastic. It was your first point. You said, don't freak out, right, whenever he or she shares something with you. Because part of what's happening there is I think your teenager is going to test you and go, "Can you handle what I'm about ready to tell you?" And our reaction is going to either close the door or it's going to open it wide open for them to be able to share whatever it is that they have to share. So that's a test for us as dads.
I accept the challenge as well, that this is also skills that apply for our communication with our sons.
Yeah.
And for that matter, doing this actually makes us better husbands. So learning to speak another love language, so to speak, right? To sit with your spouse of the opposite sex who thinks differently than you think, and to put yourself in their position, see it from their perspective. These are all really good things that not just are going to help us be better in terms of the way that we're raising our daughters, but also our sons, and actually being better husbands as well.
Good stuff.
Absolutely. And one note that I think will help guys as I'm thinking about this, the drama that you're seeing from your teenage daughter might be a little less scary if you thought of it as that drama is the result, it's the symptom of some underlying brokenness that needs to be addressed. And if you can see it through the eyes of God, of, okay, what is this girl struggling with, and how can we address that underlying issue? Then it's not as scary, because you're not like the guy at Starbucks going, "Oh, my daughter's crazy," because she's not crazy. She just needs you to sit with her and work through something. So
we all need to hear it. But especially our teenage kiddos, they need that identity built. So, Chris, hey, thank you so much for joining us. I know this is going to be the first of many conversations with you, and I learned a lot today. And I'll just say to my daughter, please forgive me for how I failed you in my parenting styles. And to that young man, I hope you're okay.
And for more information, you can go to girlabove.com, right, Krista? So there's some tools, resources, podcasts, all kinds of stuff that's out there.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining us. Hey, thank you for watching The Pursuit. Make sure you go on YouTube, subscribe, click on that little bell so you can follow us. You'll get notifications. Check us out on the website at thepursuitonline.com. Also, if you like what you're seeing, we would love your support. There's a Donate Now button on thepursuitonline.com that you can help us out to help fund what we're doing, because we're not going anywhere.
Not going anywhere. And they get tax credit for it. We're a 501c3. So
that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on The Pursuit.
See ya.